Welcome, fellow seekers of history's shadows. Tonight, we sail back to when Viking longhouses rang with whispered sagas beneath flickering hearthlight. Whether you're wrapped in blankets in Boston, winding down in Berlin, or finding stillness somewhere between, I'm grateful you've joined this midnight voyage. If you find comfort in tales of steel-forged oaths and moonlit fjords, subscribe and ring the bell, so you'll never miss our gentle descent into ancient lore. As embers glow and mead cups clink, we'll unearth secrets of Viking sagas whispered in Longhouse Feasts. Settle in, let the crackle of imagination warm you and drift away on waves of legend. A low golden glow spills across the planked floor as elder Skaldic eases onto a fur-draped bench. The longhouse's curved beams creak softly, and the hearth's coals breathe a gentle warmth into the darkened hall. Here, where smoke curls toward the rafters and mead sweetness lingers on the air, stories sleep until called. Tonight, Hjrdis lifts her carved wooden harp and lets her fingers trace its bowed strings, coaxing a single quivering note. That note becomes the seed of memory. It grows into a whisper carried on the wind, and as each listener leans forward, the firelight discovers secret runes etched into her tunic, symbols of Yggdrasil's roots, the world tree reaching into the underworld and sky. She speaks the first words in a voice softly, soft as mist, an invocation to ancestors who once roamed ice-fringed fjords and salt-sprayed shorelines. Her words weave images of twilight battles, where shields gleamed beneath a violet sky, of seers writing fate in curling smoke, and of mead hall feasts echoing with laughter and whispered omens. In this hush, you feel the gathered clan's breath align with the hearth's pulse. Each syllable settles like ash on wood, a promise that these centuries-old sagas will awaken again in your dreams. As the narrative deepens, Hjrdis's voice slows, each phrase stretched like newly drawn wool, each name intoned with reverence. You sense the weight of history and the tender bond between teller and listener. The longhouse seems to fold around you, its timbers alive with hidden grooves where past tongues have traced their marks. And as the final ember glows, you're drawn irresistibly into that realm between wakefulness and sleep. A place where Viking sagas whisper in your mind, and the night holds its breath. The amber glow of the hearth dances across wooden beams, and beside it stands Brynjar, the mead bearer, holding a carved horn brimming with fermented honey. In Viking longhouses, mead was more than drink. It was liquid memory, a vessel for tales both grand and hidden. Each sip carried the winter's chill, the thinning ice on northern lakes, and the thorn-bitter blossom that gave this brew its unique warmth. Brynjar moves with purposeful grace, weaving between benches as clansmen lean forward. His fur-edged cloak brushes the floor, its honey-brown trim echoing the mead's colour. As he pours, the bubbling liquid hisses, and the hollow clink of horn on wood heralds the ritual's beginning. With each cup passed, Brynjar murmurs a dedication to the ancestors who shaped our fate and to the sagas yet untold. Those words settle into the longhouse like rain on stone. You taste the mead's subtle tang, wildflower honey tempered by juniper berries, and the faintest hint of heather smoke. In that flavour lies the story of distant hills where beekeepers coax their hives through snow, where children watch the sun fringe the horizon in pale gold. As each warrior raises their horn, you sense a shared breath, a moment of unity before the sagas unfold. This liquid archive carries the weight of past feasts, the laughter of shield maidens recalling a summer raid, the hush when runes were interpreted in dying embers, and the clash of oars on storm-tossed waves. Brynjar's voice, low and steady, guides you beyond taste into the realm of recollection. Remember the old pact, he intones, when blood and honey sealed our kinship. You close your eyes, and for an instant, the longhouse dissolves. You're on a shore slick with tide, the winds roar a distant chorus, and the mead's warmth a beacon calling you home. A hush falls as Sigrun the Rune Lord steps forward, her breath clouding in the cool longhouse air. In her hand rests an oaken tablet, its surface smooth and pale, awaiting the surgeon's calligraphy of destiny. Each deep groove carved by her iron stylus is a strand of fate woven into the tapestry of clans and kings. Sigrun's voice is a quiet chant, like wind threading through bare branches. She traces ancient symbols, alges for protection, raido for journey, answers for secrets, each rune unfurling in whispered power. Sparks drift from the hearth, illuminating fresh wood shavings curling at her feet. As she works, the longhouse seems to lean in, its walls absorbing the grinding scrape of stylus on oak. These runes carry reckoning, warnings of winter famine, omens of blood-bound treaties, promises of safe passage across storm-lashed seas. With each strike, Sigrun invokes the ancestral forge, calling upon dwarven smiths who once hammered runes into weapon blades, and kings whose oaths were sealed in stone. You sense the tension between free will and preordained path. The carved symbols both dictate and protect, a silent covenant etched in wood. In this moment, the mead hall's warmth is tempered by the weight of what lies ahead. Warriors shift on benches, eyes fixed on the emerging design, as if it might flicker to life. You can almost feel the rune's pulse, the hidden current that channels both hope and dread through every clan member's veins. When Sigrun finishes, she lifts the tablet into the ember glow. The lines shimmer with promise and portent, and for an instant, the runes speak in a language older than memory. Then, with a steady hand, she seals the tablet in a leather pouch, its secrets carried silently until the day of need. Merge and Irie, twin daughters of a coastal chieftain, take their places by the hearth, their braided hair crowned with tiny driftwood beads. Though raised side by side on firm land, they share a deeper bond, one forged on creaking decks and salt-sprayed waves. Tonight, they offer a saga seldom told, the voyage of sisters who steered longships beneath the midnight sun. Their voices rise in unison, escur and steady, carrying the hum of distant waves through the longhouse beams. Merge begins, describing how the sisters, Ingun and Astrid, learned the sea's language by tracing barnacle patterns on prowboards and by listening to gull cries at dawn. Irie continues, recounting their first storm, when lightning cleaved the sky and the sea raged like a wounded beast. The sisters clung to oars and to each other, their laughter brittle but defiant, a beacon amid the tumult. As the tale unfurls, you see them steering through mist-rimmed fjords, charting hidden inlets scrawled in a secret rune map, and trading silks for amber at distant markets. Each word is a gentle paddle stroke, guiding you further into the hidden corners of Viking exploration. The sisters' courage is tempered by tenderness, Ingun nursing a wounded gull feather back to health, Astrid humming lullabies to calm a jittery crew. Merge's tone softens as the saga reaches its quietest moment, Ingun and Astrid sharing a single loaf of barley bread under shimmering auroras, the sky's green ribbons mirrored in their dreaming eyes. You almost taste the sweet crispness of the air, feel the low thrum of waves beneath the longship's keel. When the sisters conclude, the longhouse remains hushed, as if the sea itself has paused to listen. In that stillness you sense the unspoken truth, that these seafaring bonds run as deep as any blood oath. And as the hearth embers glow, you drift closer to that borderland where story and slumber meet. A hush of anticipation ripples through the longhouse as Einar the Beastmaster steps forward, draped in a mantle of grey wolf pelt. The firelight dances on the wolf's silvery fur, lending a spectral glow to his solemn presence. Tonight, he will interpret the silent council of beasts, their movements, their cries, and the faintest rustle beyond the hall's wooden walls. Einar raises a hand, and the hearth's flames contract as if in deference. He whips a slender horn carved from antler, its mouthpiece etched with lupine runes. A soft, mournful note drifts across the benches, and you sense the longhouse itself lean closer. Outside, hidden from view, a lone wolf howls in the dark, Its single call becomes the first omen of the evening. Einar recounts the wolf's midnight march through frost-dusted forests, where it traced the clan's wounded, an unspoken bond between human and beast. He speaks of silver-eyed cubs born beneath a blood moon, of the alpha's silent leadership, and of their uncanny ability to sense approaching storms. Each image he conjures feels alive, the soft pad of paws on damp earth, the glint of moonlight on curved fangs, the wolf's breath misting in cold air. As Einar unfolds the tale, you recognize the clink of drinking horns softened to a reverent murmur. The omens he reads, an interrupted howl, a paw print on fresh snow, the wolf's gaze reflecting torchlight, carry weight. They speak of upcoming trials, journeys through hidden mountain passes, pacts sealed in blood and fur, and the need for vigilance when allies appear as predators in disguise. By the chapter's end, the wolf's counsel hangs in the longhouse like a living thing. You feel its presence at your shoulder, its silent promise to guide and protect, or to warn when the pack's path turns perilous. As the final embers glow, Einar lowers the horn and fades into the shadowed rafters, leaving you cradled by both fear and comfort in the wolf's ancient whisper. The longhouse dims as Brynolf, the harpist skald, takes his place beside the hearth, a small triangular harp cradled in his arms. The carved wood gleams dully, and each taut string quivers with anticipation. In Viking tradition, music could foretell destinies as surely as runes, and tonight, Brynolf will weave an oral omen into the feast's fabric. He plucks a single note, deep and resonant, then allows it to die away. A hush follows, broken only by the crackle of coals. With the second string, he coaxes a melancholic melody that seems to echo distant waves crashing against basalt cliffs. Each chord falls gently, like warm mead trickling into a waiting horn. Clan members close their eyes, leaning into the harmonies as though they might glimpse the threads of fate hidden in the vibrations. As the tune deepens, Brynolf's nimble fingers dance across the strings, shifting between minor and modal intervals. The melody unfurls images, a longship's weathered prow cutting through mist, a lone wolf crossing a silvered plain, a shield maiden raising her blade to the dawn's first light. These visions, carried on sound alone, beckon the listeners beyond the hall's timbered walls. Midway through the performance, Brynolf pauses, breath-catching, and strikes a sudden, unexpected dissonance. The clash reverberates, and for a heartbeat, the air seems to tremble. This musical jolt is a sign, a warning of schism among allies, or of a winter harsher than any before. Then, gentler strains return, smoothing the tension like a healer's touch. When the final note fades, the longhouse remains still in respectful awe. The omen has been breathed into each soul, caution and hope entwined in melody. In that silence, the clan senses both the promise of unity and the shadow of trials to come. Brynolf's harp is laid aside, and the feast resumes, yet the air remains charged. Every footstep and whispered conversation touched by the horns of fate. Under the low arch of the longhouse rafters, Arni the navigator unrolls a weathered map, spanning from Greenland's icy reaches to his homeland's sheltered fjords. His breath mists in the lamplight as he traces each line, recounting voyages that bridged worlds unknown. On this night, he shares revelations gleaned from sea charts left behind in Vinland's tangled forests. He speaks of a rocky inlet, where pale green moss cloaks centuries-old runestones carved by Norse explorers, markers of a fleeting colony lost to time. The clan leans forward as Arni sketches each hidden bay, describing how moonlight on water revealed secret sandbars to watchful eyes. His voice is low and rhythmic, guiding you along ancient night roads where only stars served as beacons. Arni recounts a storm-wrecked crew stranded beneath a blood-red aurora who found solace in a cave's warm breath and forged alliances with native hunters. He paints vivid scenes, salted fish roasting over driftwood fires, the salt spray crystallizing on helmet rims, and the hush when distant howls threaded through coastal pines. Every detail stakes a claim on the mind, weaving geography and saga into one tapestry. The Longhouse hushes as Arn describes the final revelation, a hidden, rune-lit marker pointing northward, suggesting a secondary voyage beyond known territories. He pauses, pointing to a curve on the hand-drawn parchment, then looks up, eyes bright with wonder. In that gaze lies the thrill of discovery and the quiet understanding that even in familiar waters, secrets endure. As the embers glow, you feel the pull of those night roads, the urge to sail beyond your own harbour's edge. The map rolls closed, but the paths it revealed remain open in memory, guiding you toward horizons both distant and dreamlike. When the mead's laughter dims, Jorunn, the shield-bearer, rises, her circular iron shield strapped to her back. Beneath its rim lies a secret, oaths sworn in silence, carved into the shield's inner surface. Tonight she will reveal the hidden covenants that bind warriors beyond blade and blood. Jorunn draws her shield forward, exposing faint grooves, snaking across its polished face. Each line represents a vow to protect a fallen comrade, to avenge a broken alliance, to guard a sacred shrine at land's edge. She recounts how these pledges were etched in solitude, by candlelight and oath, so that only the bearer truly bore their weight. As she speaks, you feel the cold iron's promise, unbreakable and unyielding. She tells of a warrior who carried such a shield into battle against a raiding horde, the embedded oaths fueling his strength when armor failed. You visualize the warrior's breath clouding in the air, shield raised against a hail of arrows, each carved vow resonating in his heart. Jorunn's tone softens as she describes the most sacred oath, one never spoken aloud. It binds her to the memory of a childhood friend taken by plague, the promise to carry her name forward in every battle's retelling. The hearth's fire flickers, as if leaning in to witness this final unspoken surface. When the chapter ends, Jorunn turns the shield inward and affixes it to the wall, its face now hidden. The oaths rest in shadow, known only to her and the ancestors. Yet you sense their presence, an unseen force guiding every warrior who dares to lift the iron and stand on fate's fragile edge. A hush enfolds the Longhouse as two warriors, Sigurd and Halvar, step into the hearth's glow, their swords held before them. Tonight, they will seal their blood-brother bond, an unbreakable alliance that transcends kinship and clan. The ritual unfolds in silence, each movement deliberate and sacred. Sigurd unsheathes his blade, its steel darkened by countless battles. He pricks his palm and tilts it above Halvar's own, letting crimson droplets mingle in a silver bowl. The firelight shivers across the blood, illuminating the swirling pattern of two intertwined rivers. No word is spoken. Speech would diminish the pact's power. Instead, their shared gaze carries every whispered promise. Protection in life, vengeance in death, unwavering loyalty beneath all skies. When the bowl fills, they dip their sword tips into the blood and press the blades together. A muted clink, resonating through the hall. Sparks dance along the metal, as if acknowledging the vow. Clan members watch respectfully, knowing that from this moment on, Sigurd and Halvar will stand as one, each breath and heartbeat pledged to the other's fate. The ritual concludes with a shared drink from the blood-tinted horn. Sigurd lifts it first, then Halvar, their movements perfectly mirrored. The mead within tastes faintly of iron, a reminder of the bond's gravity. With that sip, the air seems to exhale, releasing tension into quiet warmth. As they sheathe their swords and clasp forearms, you feel the ritual's resonance deep in your bones. The blood-brother bond is more than ceremony. It is a living shield against betrayal, a promise carried into every challenge. And as the feast resumes, the alliance of two hearts expands to embrace the Longhouse itself. A hush deepens as Frodis the Vulva retreats behind a tapestry hung at the Longhouse's rear. Only her pale hand emerges, gripping a slender wand of yew. In Norse tradition, the Vulva's whispers could unravel destinies entwined with both gods and mortals. Tonight, her voice will echo through the hearth's warmth, calling forth hidden truths. She speaks softly, her words winding through the smoke like living mist. Blood of the North flows in restless veins. She begins, her tone folded with both warning and compassion. The tapestry sways as if stirred by unseen breath, and the air grows still. Clan members lean forward, eyes wide in the half-darkness, trusting the veil of cloth to shield them from uncanny sights. Frodis invokes the Norns' names, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, who weave the threads of past, present, and future. Her incantation summons visions. A raven's wing beating against a storm-tossed sky, a shattered shield drifting in a silent sea, and a lone flame flickering against encroaching darkness. Each image is a puzzle piece of oncoming fate. Then, her voice lowers further, revealing a prophecy meant only for those who dared to seek it. When the ice yields to spring's first thaw, a path opens to realms both perilous and wondrous. Trust not every dawn's promise, for shadows lurk where light is strongest. As the final syllable fades, Frodis steps back into the firelight, her shawl trailing like a mist. The tapestry falls still, and the Longhouse exhales. In that charged silence, you feel the weight of her words settle within your bones. A gentle forewarning carrying both hope and caution. When the next horn of mead clinks, the normal rhythms of feast resume, but you know the Vulva's prophecy will echo through your dreams, guiding steps in nights yet to come. As dawnlight filters through oak shutters, the Longhouse awakens to the briny scent of the nearby fjord. Groa the fisherfolk elder strides in, carrying platters of salt-cured salmon and smoked trout, each fillet still warm from the embers. He tells of how these fish, harvested under the pale midnight sun, became the heart of every feast. Symbols of sea's bounty and boundary between man and tide. Groa's gravelly voice recounts a night when a sudden gale drove his crew ashore, only to find shelter in a hidden inlet. By coals and brine, they smoked their catch and shared stories of water spirits that whispered secrets to those below the waves. With each tale, you taste the salt sting and feel the smoke's sweetness, reminders of the ocean's dual gifts of life and challenge. Clan members lean forward as Hroa sprinkles coarse salt onto hewn wooden boards, the crystals glittering in the firelight like stars over dark water. He describes the labor, hauling nets through foam-flecked surf, gutting fish on rocky dunes, and stoking smokehouses with driftwood collected from tidal pools. Every morsel served tonight carries these memories, binding the feast to both harvest and hardship. As the mead flows, Groa weaves in legends of sea serpents glimpsed beyond breaking waves, and covenants made with ancient tide guardians to ensure safe passage and plentiful catch. By the chapter's end, the Longhouse feels as vast as the open sea. You imagine the lapping waves against a stone pier, the sky's pink ribbons at dawn, and the hush when a whale's misted spout pierces the horizon. Then the platters arrive. Warm fish, salted barley cakes, and honeyed butter. Each bite a conduit to fjordside rites. In this communion of salt, smoke, and story, you drift towards slumber, carried by tides of memory. A reverent hush falls as Eldhild, the ritual leader, steps forward, cradling a chalice fashioned from a reindeer's femur. The bone is polished smooth, its surface etched with tiny runes honoring each generation of her lineage. Tonight she will pour mead into this sacred vessel, bridging the living and the departed in a single solemn toast. Eldhild's voice, soft yet unwavering, tells how the bone-chalice was first created, when a famine-stricken clan offered their finest hornware to the ancestors, only to find abandoned antler bones at dawn, transformed by unseen hands into a vessel of power. Since then, the chalice has carried every final libation at midsummer feasts and funeral pyres alike. As she pours, the amber mead clinks gently against bone. Eldhild murmurs each ancestor's name, chieftains and shield maidens, bakers and blacksmiths, calling them back to the flickering hearth. You feel a subtle pulse, as if those named lean in from beyond, seeking a sip of the warm brew. Clan members close their eyes, offering silent thanks and pledges of remembrance. Eldhild recounts the most sacred moment, when the chalice cracked during a harsh winter, only to mend itself by morning, its fissure sealed with a silver molten rune. She interprets this as a sign that the bond between generations cannot be broken, no matter how dire the season. When the final drop is consumed, Eldhild holds the chalice aloft, its runes glowing faintly in ember light. Then she gently places it upon the altar, allowing the hush of the longhouse to settle like snow. In that stillness, you feel carried beyond time, cradled by voices woven from bone and breath. Torolf, the apprentice skald, kneels before a shadowed timber wall, torch in hand. Beneath layers of soot, he's discovered hidden glyphs, ancient carvings that predate the longhouse itself. Tonight, he will illuminate and interpret these silent messages left by unknown hands. As the torch's flame flickers, Torolf breathes out a soft chant to steady his hand. He traces each form, angular runes speaking of moonlit battles, spirals denoting cycles of life and death, and delicate symbols that hint at female deities once worshipped in these halls. With every reveal he recounts fragmented prophecies. A coming chieftain foretold by 3 ravens, a winter that would test hearth and heart alike. The clan leans forward, drawn into the darkness to light transformation. You feel the grain of the wood under thumb, the heat of the torch on fingers. Torolf's eyes grow bright as he deciphers a glyph promising unity through storm and another promising guardian beneath flame. Each translation becomes a promise or warning carried in the wood's memory. Between revelations, Torolf pauses to let the echoes settle. He describes how these carvings were likely hidden during a time of upheaval, perhaps the Great Famine, when scribes and seers encoded counsel for future generations. The runes survived centuries of smoke and salt until tonight's careful hand revealed their power once more. When Torolf finishes, he stands and wipes soot from his cheeks. The glyphs now glow golden in the torchlight, their messages freshly awakened. As the flame diminishes, the carvings fade back into twilight, but their counsel remains engraved on your mind, guiding you deeper into Viking secrets. Before stories and sagas, the Longhouse itself was born of masterful craft. Gunnar the Master Builder stands beneath its vaulted rafters, explaining the mechanics that keep this great hall standing through winter snows and summer storms. Tonight, he shares the hidden ingenuity woven into every beam and joint. Gunnar's voice resonates like hammer on anvil as he describes selecting oak timbers felled in autumn when the wood's sap runs slow and its strength peaks. He speaks of mortise and tenon joints hewn by hand, bound with yew-pegs so precisely cut that even a thin leather strap cannot slip between them. Each technique preserved in the builder's guild and passed silently from father to son. He gestures upward, pointing to carved dragon-head finials perched at each gable. These were not mere decoration. They served to divert wind and draw smoke from the hearth skyward, creating a stable draft that warmed every corner. Below hidden braces, called heart beams, distribute the roof's weight evenly, protecting walls from bowing under heavy snowfall. As he recounts each detail, you sense the hall's living strength. The timbers creak not from age, but from the very design meant to flex and settle without breaking. Gunnar recalls a winter when snowfall buried the roof's eaves, and though the village outside crumbled under weight, this hall sheltered every family in its warm embrace. When he concludes, Gunnar places his calloused palm against a beam overhead. You feel its smoothness, the almost imperceptible give, engineered over decades of practice. In the silence that follows, you appreciate the hidden labor behind every tale told here, the magic of structure that cradles memory and mead alike. At the hall's far end stands the wolfskin throne, a seat of authority draped in the pelt of a great grey wolf. Brynhild the chieftain strides toward it, her fur-lined cloak sweeping the floor. Tonight she'll recount how this throne came to symbolize leadership tempered by both ferocity and fidelity. Brynhild's voice is calm yet commanding as she recalls the hunt that yielded the wolf pelt. She describes tracking the beast through knee-deep snow, hearing its low growl beneath starlight. When the final clash came, she faced the wolf alone, spear raised against a creature embodying the land's wild spirit. Her victory earned her the right to sit here, to rule with balance between human will and nature's law. As she settles into the throne, the pelt's dense fur cushions her form. Clan members watch in respectful silence, recognizing the ritual's weight. Brynhild explains how, on her coronation night, each warrior laid a silver arm ring at the throne's foot, an oath of fealty bound by blood and fur. She invites you to feel the throne's presence, both soft beneath your spine and formidable in its commanding height. She weaves in legends of past chieftains whose reigns rose and fell like seasons, each guided by counsel whispered into the wolfskin throne's hollow back. From here, decisions of war and peace were made, and alliances drafted under watchful eyes of carved wolf heads on the wall. When Brynhild rises, the throne seems to exhale, its fur settling back into stillness. You sense its silent promise, leadership born of harmony with the wild and strength forged in solitude. And as the feast resumes, the wolfskin throne remains, a lasting reminder of power's entwined glory and restraint. When the feast's roar subsides, Signy, the female skald, steps forward, amber amulet glowing against her chest. She raises a small torch high, its flame flickering in rhythm with her heartbeat. Tonight she will sing the fire goddess hymn, an ode to Freya, patron of love, war, and the living flame that dances in every hearth. Signy's voice begins as a whisper, each word softened by smoke. She weaves Old Norse verses, praising Freya's descent from heavenly halls to mortal hearths, guiding women's hands in weaving and men's hearts in courage. The hymn's chorus swells like a bonfire. O Freya of falcon flight, warm our souls with ember's light. Each line is a spark, setting hearts alight with reverence. She describes Freya's tears turned to gold, a testament to both joy and sorrow intertwined. As Signy sings, you feel the warmth intensify, imagining a hearth ignited by divine breath, its light warding off winter's darkest shadows. Clan members close their eyes, letting the hymn's cadence merge with the crackling coals. Midway, the melody shifts to a minor lilt, conjuring images of battles where Freya guided fallen warriors to Valhalla's gates. Signy's fingers trace glowing runes on a small fire-charred tablet, invoking the goddess's protective blessing over the hall. Then, with a final flourish, she lowers the torch and the hymn concludes, the air humming with sacred silence. As the last note fades, Signy bows deeply, her amber amulet catching a stray spark and glowing like captured sunlight. You feel Freya's presence linger in every ember's afterglow, a gentle guardian for dreams and journeys yet to come. A hush deepens when Holdis the silent warrior appears, carrying an axe bound in black leather. Its blade is unadorned, save for a single rune carved near the haft, honor. Without uttering a word, she places the axe before the hearth, and the hall falls under the weight of its silent story. Huldis' silent vigil began years ago, when her words failed after a battle's wound to throat and tongue. Yet her deeds spoke louder than any speech. Tonight, through measured gestures, she reveals an unseen tale, of saving a chieftain from drowning in a river's icy current, of felling enemies to protect villagers, of carrying wounded kin to safety under stormy skies. Each act is symbolized by invisible marks along the axe's edge. She lifts the axe from the floor and taps its blade twice against the hearth's iron grate. Clink, clink, sparks fly, tiny embers dancing in tribute to her silent vow. Clan members watch in rapt attention, interpreting each movement. A downward tap for mercy shown, an upward press for justice delivered, a circular stroke for cycles of life preserved. Without words, Haldis points to the rune and then touches her heart. An unspoken message that honor lives beyond speech. She returns the axe to its position, steps back and inclines her head. The longhouse feels hushed, not by absence of sound, but by the presence of unwavering courage. In that quiet moment, you understand the silent axe's voice. It speaks of actions that echo through ages, of vows kept in silence, and of a warrior whose deeds carve deeper marks than any blade. And as the feast resumes, her silent honor resonates within every soul. At a low stone anvil, Ketil, the blacksmith's apprentice, kindles coals to forge tiny iron brands. Each will mark kinship across clans, symbols of alliance forged in heat and hammer. Tonight he explains how these hearth brands bind families beyond blood. Ketil's face is lit by the forge's glow as he shapes a glowing rod into a simple rune symbol, intertwining rings for friendship, a stylized wolf for mutual protection, a spiral for shared destiny. He hammers each brand with rhythmic precision, sparks flying like molten confetti. As the iron cools, he dips it into cold water, the hissing echoing like tide on stones. He recounts the first alliance between two rival chieftains who sealed their pact by branding each other's arms under the hearth's heat. Though their sons later quarreled, the hearth brands remained, a constant reminder of unity amid discord. By marking the skin, the iron tethered their fates. Betrayal would scorch both family reputations. Ketil carefully arranges the cooled brands on an oaken board. Clan members step forward, selecting marks that will bind them to neighbors across fjords and forests. Each brand is pressed into softened leather for ceremonial belts, ensuring the symbol remains close to heart and hand. As the ritual concludes, Ketil lifts a branded belt high, the mark gleaming black against supple hide. You sense the iron's power, not as weapon but as promise. These hearth brands will outlast seasons of war and peace alike, inscribed on leather and spirit. And as you trace the symbol with your mind, you feel woven into a tapestry of shared oaths. Each brand a testament to alliances that hold kingdoms together. In a corner of the longhouse, Freyd, the mead mistress, tends a bubbling oak barrel. Her satchel of dried herbs and wild berries rests at her feet. Tonight, she invites you behind the scenes of mead's alchemy, where honey's sweetness meets herbal depth and fermentation's magic. Freyd's voice is soft, like distant waves. She explains how she sources honey from forest hives that cling to cliff faces, how she dries heather and elderflower under summer's sun, and how she layers juniper, rosemary, and wild thyme into her brew. Each addition alters the mead's character. Juniper's pine tang evokes deep woods, while elderflower whispers of secret glades. She ladles a small cup and passes it around. The first sip is warm honey on tongue. The second reveals bright citrus notes from wild lemons traded at distant markets. With each taste, Freyd recounts the mead's history, how it fortified warriors before dawn raids and soothed weary travelers after long fjord passages. As the barrel's amber liquid flows, Freyd shares a secret ingredient, a single pinch of pulverized star anise collected under midsummer's full moon, said to grant clarity of dream. Clan members close their eyes, imagining hints of licorice swirl beneath the honey's glow. When the tasting ends, Freyd raises her cup in a gentle toast to journeys that feed body and soul. You feel the flavors lingering, an edible memory etched in taste, binding you to land and lore. In the settling hush, the mead mistress allows the mead's warmth to spread, a final, comforting ember before night's deep embrace. When laughter and song momentarily wane, Asta the noblewoman emerges, bearing two simple silver rings on a velvet cloth. She steps into a pool of candlelight and speaks of alliances forged not in grand halls, but in hushed corners, marriage pacts that shaped kingdoms in silence. Asta's tone is gentle yet precise as she recounts a clandestine union between a coastal chieftain's daughter and an inland jarl. Their families, rivals for decades, recognized a greater threat looming across the sea. Under the cover of night, they exchanged rings beneath a dripping tapestry. No witnesses save the moon and a trusted maidservant. This hidden alliance redirected trade routes and forestalled warfare that would have devastated both realms. She lifts the rings, reflecting candle flicker in polished silver. Each band is engraved with a lion and a raven, symbols of two houses once at odds. Clan members lean forward, sensing the cool weight of political craft behind these humble circles. Asta speaks of other pacts. Farmers wed to fishermen's kin to secure grain and catch. Healers bound to warriors to ensure care in battle. As she finishes, Asta places the velvet cloth on a small side table, the rings glinting like quiet promises. You feel the resonance of these hidden vows, how they wove peace beneath layers of distrust, and how their true power lay in discretion. In that moment, you glimpse the delicate dance of diplomacy that pulsed beneath every feast, every hint of mead-sweet smoke. When the candles gutter and the feast resumes, the memory of hidden alliances lingers, a reminder that the softest pacts can hold the greatest strength. Longship trader Svanhild stands before the hearth, her cloak glinting with gold-threaded embroidery. In her hands rests a miniature model of a river barge, its oars tipped in bronze and inlaid with tiny amber stones. Tonight she reveals how silent rivers bore more than timber and stone. They carried the wealth of entire realms. She tells of caravans gliding through mist-shrouded waterways, laden with beaver pelts destined for distant courts, ingots forged in far-off forges, and glass beads traded from Byzantine shores. Each gilded oar symbolized a pact between clans, safe passage in exchange for coin and cargo. As Svanhild traces the model's oars, you imagine the hush of dawn mist parting along riverbanks, the only sound a gentle lapping against wooden hulls. Her voice carries the rhythm of water, steady and measured. She recounts a night when a hidden tax collector boarded a barge under starless skies, demanding toll for every chest of silk. Traders surrendered a single amber bead per crate, a token small enough to evade notice yet sufficient to placate authority. That bead's value echoed in distant markets, forging silent alliances built on trust and cunning. As the hearth embers glow, Svanhild describes the final voyage of a famed river fleet, its oars carving intricate patterns on black water, the amber glinting like captured sunlight. She emphasizes how the smallest tributaries, once overlooked, held the richest secrets of trade, their currents flowing beneath the notice of rival chieftains. When she concludes, Svanhild sets the model beside the Longhouse's stone wall. In its stillness, you feel the pull of unseen currents and the weight of silent barges laden with treasure. And as the feast resumes, the gilded oars linger in memory, guiding your thoughts down hidden waterways of history. A ripple of suppressed laughter sweeps through the hall as Brynhild and Olav, youthful troublemakers, slip between benches under the hearth's glow. Their mischievous grins promise a tale of shadowed mead stealers, youths who tested Longhouse vigilance on moonless nights. Olav begins, describing how he and his friends learned to slide across the rafters on hidden ropes, descending behind the master brewer's back. Brynhild adds the detail of sharpened bone hooks, plucked from fish remains, that snagged barrels' lids without a sound. Each stolen sip was a silent rebellion, a childhood rite of passage, whispered under flickering torchlight. The duo mimics their furtive movements, tiptoeing past slumbering guards, holding breaths as dogs sniff the air, and passing mead horns with lips pressed tightly to muffle clinks. You taste the honeyed warmth in memory, each stolen drop a testament to cunning over brute force. They speak of close calls, a guard's boot brushing a barrel, the frantic hush that followed, and the triumphant escape through a hatch in the floor. As the story unfolds, you sense the thrill that bound them, the hush of the Longhouse transformed into playground and proving ground. Brynhild's voice softens at the climax. How the ringleader offered his last stolen horn to soothe a grieving elder, turning mischief into mercy. That act earned them leniency and a rite of passage at the feast's end. When their tale ends, the Longhouse hums with warmth and shared nostalgia. You feel the spark of youthful daring, the belief that even within hallowed walls, adventure awaits those who dare move in shadows. And as the candles gutter, you drift toward the gentle comfort that comes from remembering first rebellions. When the clan's chatter subsides, old Helga the Elder steps to the hearth, a small bronze brazier in hand. Within it, she burns a handful of pine resin, and soon wisps of fragrant smoke curl toward the rafters. Tonight, she will utter the Elder's oath, words carried on smoke to bind hearts and fates alike. Her voice, though frail, holds the steadiness of centuries. She intones a vow of protection over the Longhouse, that no harm shall befall those within, while her clan honors hearth and kin. Each line she speaks is lifted by the smoke, spinning upward like a living tapestry. Clan members lean forward, eyes reflecting the dancing plumes. Helga recounts how, during a past famine, she stood before a starving village and swore to the old gods that every mouth would be fed if her people remained united. That oath, carried by smoke to unseen realms, catalyzed a miracle. Hunters returned with game and traders arrived unbidden with grain. The Longhouse's bellies were filled, and the clan's faith in spoken promise was forever sealed. As Helga speaks each line, you sense the incense-like pine scent settle in your lungs, its warmth threading through memory and hope. She concludes with blessings for future storms, for children's laughter to remain undimmed, and for reclaiming lost lands. With a final exhale, she stifles the brazier's flame, letting the last tendrils of smoke dissipate into hushed awe. When she lowers the brazier, the firelight seems to brighten in acknowledgement. In that charged pause, you feel Helga's oath echo through your veins, a living promise woven of words and smoke, binding you to hearth and clan, long after embers cool. As the hearth's warmth spreads, Astrid the coastal matron rises, her sea salt necklace jangling softly. She begins a nocturne, an ancient fisherwomen's chant, invoking ocean's bounty and the siren's lullaby that guides nets to teeming shoals. Her voice ripples like gentle waves, each note carrying both warning and promise. She sings of moonlit tides that coax herring toward hidden coves, of the hush when dolphins glide beneath a longship's keel, and of the siren's call to those who dare venture too far. The melody is both soothing and haunting, a reminder that the sea's generosity is tethered to its inscrutable depths. Fisherwomen clad in salt-stained skirts sway in time, arms weaving knitting motions that mimic casting nets. You feel the tide's rhythm in your blood, the salt spray's bite on your lips. Astrid's chant details rituals, wearing blue shells at dawn, offering silver fishhooks at dusk, and leaving woven wreaths of seaweed on sandy ledges to honor ancient tide guardians. Midway, her tone dips into minor keys, evoking storms that stranded crews on rocky shores. Yet each dark passage resolves into brighter refrains, promising safe return and generous catch. Clan members close their eyes, transported to wind-lashed beaches where the horizon meets endless possibilities. When the last note fades, Astrid bows to a hushed hall. In that quiet, you feel both the lullaby's serenity and the sea's underlying mystery. The nocturne lingers, as comforting as Med and as deep as the ocean itself, guiding you gently toward dreams of moonlit waves. A hush falls as twins Hraven and Hilda enter, their cloaks adorned with carved raven feathers. They stand before the hearth and invoke the twin ravens, Hugin and Munin, Odin's watchful messengers. Tonight, they tell how those ravens strode unseen among mortals, carrying secrets from hall to hall. Hraven's voice is low and contemplative, weaving the raven of thought, while Hilda's tone is softer, embodying memory's grace. Together, they recite the raven's flight, how they soared from Asgard's spires to Midgard's forests, returning each dawn with whispered truths. You can almost feel their wings brush your cheek as they alight upon glittering yew branches. They describe how seers watched ravens' patterns to glean warnings of chieftains' betrayals or omens of foreign invasion. A single raven's solitary caw could signal hidden plots, while a pair perched silently foretold unity between warring tribes. With each detail, you sense the raven's gaze, sharp, intelligent, and ever-present. As the hearth's embers cool, the twins recount a legend. A raven perched atop a longhouse's highest beam, unseen until dawn's light revealed a carved rune beneath its talons, a warning that saved an entire clan from slaughter. That rune, interpreted by a skilled volver, shifted battle plans and forged peace where war once loomed. When their tale ends, Hraven and Hilda spread their feathered cloaks and bow. In that moment, you feel the twin ravens' silent vigilance, an unseen network of knowledge carried on midnight wings. And as you settle deeper into the Longhouse's warmth, their watcher's presence drifts with you into the night. As the fire crackles, Leif the Tide Watcher approaches, cloak patterned with wave motifs. He lifts a shell horn to his lips and blows a single note that resonates like rolling tide. Tonight, he interprets the fjord's whisper, natural omens carried on wind and water. Leif's voice drifts like coastal breeze as he recounts how a sudden stillness in the bay foretold an approaching storm, prompting fishermen to haul nets before disaster struck. He speaks of bioluminescent algae lighting dark waters, signaling warmer currents that shifted migratory fish routes and brought bounty nearer to shore. Clan members lean close, listening for echoes of gull calls that once guided lost hunters home. He describes a forest of kelp swaying beneath icy waves, a silent dance interpreted as blessing by sea gardens that fed entire villages. Yet the depth's hush also warned of cold snaps. When whales lingered near the fjord's mouth, marrow froze and time itself seemed paused. Each environmental sign became part of a living tapestry, hailstones shaped like shards of dragon scales, early frost glimmering like shattered glass on pine needles. Mid-narrative, Leif pauses and gently taps the shell horn on a wooden pillar. A hush follows, broken only by the hearth's sigh, thoughtful. "Nature speaks," he intones, "and we must listen." He places the horn aside and spreads a handful of driftwood ashes over his palm, each fragment a memory of tides past. When his interpretation ends, you sense the fjord's presence, its rising mists, its murmured warnings, and its quiet gifts. The Longhouse, though warm and sheltered, feels connected to those elemental voices, and as you lean back, the fjord's whisper carries you into a dreamscape of wind-swept shores and moonlit waters. Near the hearth's edge, Astrid the herb keeper unrolls a faded parchment, scribbled with cryptic botanical notes. Tonight she unveils secret mead recipes, ancient herb lore refined by moonlight and modest hands. Astrid's voice drifts low as she describes gathering yarrow at dawn's first glow, lavender beneath midsummer's high sun, and mugwort when the moon is fullest. Each herb brought distinct nuance. Yarrow's gentle bitterness warded off fever dreams, lavender eased restless minds, and mugwort stirred prophetic visions. Mead, distilled with these additions, did more than intoxicate, it healed body and soul. She carefully plucks dried sprigs from her satchel, crushing them between calloused fingers. The fragrance swells, honeyed herb meets hearth smoke. Clan members inhale deeply, tasting memory on the air, Astrid recounts a time when plague ravaged a neighbouring village. Mead laced with elder blossom and blackthorn saved lives, its herbal compounds easing coughs and soothing lungs. Midway, she pauses to turn a page, revealing a recipe for dream mead, a blend of valerian root, rosehip, and a whisper of fireweed. A single sip was said to beckon guided dreams, where answers to life's riddles unfolded in midnight visions. She warns, however, that too much could pull one into unsettling depths. As Astrid finishes, she pours a sample into wooden chalices. The colour is pale gold, the scent a gentle herbal lullaby. Each taster closes their eyes and lets the warmth spread. When the last drop is savoured, Astrid rolls the parchment and secures it in leather. You feel the herb lore's potency, threads of healing and mystery woven into each draught. When the night's chill tightens, Jofrid the winter hunter enters, her fur-lined cloak stiff with frost. She speaks of frostbitten secrets, rituals and feasts held in longhouses buried beneath snowdrifts and icebound winds. Jofrid's voice crackles like frozen branches as she recounts how hunters tracked elk through drifts so deep they vanished in white expanses. Upon returning, they carved ice blocks into temporary hearth surrounds, trapping warmth and song beneath crystalline walls. These frostbound feasts honoured endurance. Each gift of food was measured against the season's harshness. She describes the winter menu: seal oil-steeped flatbread, baked on stone slabs, pickled root vegetables preserved in ice cellars, and spiced boar roasted over driftwood flames. The smoke rose in white plumes, mingling with the hearth's warmth, forging a bridge between chill outside and solace within. Clan members exhale visible breaths, tasting both smoke and snow in their memories. Mid-tale, Jofrid pauses and lifts a carved shell cup filled with winter mead, honey laced with juniper and a hint of pine resin. She explains that its warmth warded off frostbite and guided dreams of spring's return. You feel the mug's heat seep into your palms and imagine the faint glow of auroras beyond ice-crusted windows. As Jofrid finishes, she presses a gloved hand against the longhouse door, feeling the frozen layer that seals the hall. You sense the fragility of life in winter's grip and the fierce celebration that defied it. And as the feast's laughter resumes, the frostbitten secrets linger, embers of warmth shining brightest against the cold. As ember glow softens, Hallfrid the chronicler steps forward, empty scroll in hand. She speaks of silent sagas, tales never committed to parchment but carried in breath and memory alone. These ephemeral stories shaped clans yet vanished with each storyteller's final breath. Hallfrid's tone is reflective, tinged with reverence. She recounts how wandering skalds memorized epic verses, passing them from hearth to hearth. Each retelling subtly adapted, names changed, events shifted, until the original tale became a mosaic of collective recollection. Some sagas spoke of distant battles, others of everyday life in hidden hamlets. All were lost when memory faltered. She describes a beloved saga of a healer who roamed frozen moors, healing wolf bites with whispered chants. No scroll recorded her deeds. Only those who sat by firelight can claim fragments. Hallfrid hums a few lines, rough and incomplete, reminding the clan of what vanished when seers and skalds passed away without apprentices. Mid-story, she holds the empty scroll aloft, a symbol of both potential and void. You feel the weight of absence, the sagas that never reached ink, the voices that grew silent. Yet in that void lies responsibility, to remember, to speak, to pass on whispers before they dissipate. When Hallfrid lowers the scroll, she issues a gentle challenge. Thoughtful, let this empty page spur your memory, that silent sagas find new voice. The Longhouse responds with respectful hush, as if pledging to guard these stories in mind and heart. And as the final embers flicker, you recognize the fragile power of memory, how every tale deserves its moment before slipping into silence. When merriment hums softly, Ingrid the cautionary elder uncovers a dark urn inscribed with binding runes. Today's tale is of rune-cursed meads, brews laced with warnings and bitterness, meant to deter folly as much as to intoxicate. Ingrid's voice is grave as she recounts how, during a host's betrayal, a vengeful skald cursed a barrel of mead with runes that inflicted dreams of fear on anyone who drank. Those who drank too deep awoke haunted by shadows, their minds echoing with whispered threats. Clan members shift uneasily as Ingrid traces the runes' shapes in the air, each symbol crackling with latent power. She describes how cursed meads served as final deterrent. Rye meads tainted with functions of reminder, an impossible bitterness that imprinted enemies' names on drinkers' tongues, ensuring memory of betrayal lasted generations. Yet the same brew, when used judiciously, strengthened loyalty by reminding clans of sacrifices made. Mid-narrative, Ingrid pours a thimbleful of the tannin-dark liquid into a wooden cup. The mead's surface shimmers with oily hue. She warns that one sip demands caution. Its bitterness surpasses any honey-sweet brew, and its runes bind both body and mind until proper atonement. You imagine the acrid taste burning throat and memory alike. When she finishes, Ingrid seals the urn and places it on a high shelf. The hall's laughter dims, replaced by contemplative hush. In that hush, you sense the dual nature of this rune-cursed mead. Power to punish and to preserve, a stern reminder that words and actions carry weight beyond the feast. The hearth's glow softens as Brynhild the folk healer enters, satchel of salves and small clay pots slung at her side. She kneels beside a wounded warrior resting on furs, and with gentle murmurs begins the art of hearthside healing. In Viking lore, wounds carried more than blood. They held stories of sacrifice and survival. Brynhild's fingers, warmed by the firelight, mix pounded willow bark and thyme in a bronze dish. She explains how willow's salicin eased fevered bones, while thyme's antiseptic quality staved off infection. Each herb was gathered at precise moments, dawn for the gentlest potency, dusk to strengthen the brew's heart. As she spreads warm poultices along the warrior's arm, you feel a soothing warmth seep into your own limbs. She recounts a bitter winter when plague shook a distant settlement. Armed only with root decoctions and comforting words, Brynhild travelled between longhouses on sled, tending the sick by candle and hearth. Many believed her touch carried hope itself, a balm for mind as well as body. Clan members lean close, inhaling the blend's earthy scent, tasting memory on the air. Mid-healing, she applies a honey and pine resin salve to seal the wound, explaining that honey's natural sugars drew impurities out, while pine resin formed a breathable scab. The warrior exhales in relief, muscles loosening as warmth spreads. Brynhild hums a lullaby, an old tune said to speed recovery by calming the soul. When the ointment is set, Brynhild rises and pats the warrior's shoulder. In that moment, you sense the quiet power of care, how in the Longhouse's heart, healing and story intertwined. As the feast resumes, her hearthside medicine lingers, an ember of comfort carried beyond the night. A hush befalls the hall as Odin, the storyteller, unfurls a faded scroll depicting hidden fjords, secret exile refuges carved into Norway's northern shores. He traces pale lines with a slender finger, conjuring tales of chieftains forced from power who found solace in these ice-sculpted coves. Odin's voice drifts like mist over still waters. He recounts how Jarl Eirik, ousted in a bloody coup, sailed under cover of night and discovered a fjord whose sheer walls muffled the ocean's roar. There, he built a hidden camp beneath overhanging cliffs, its door concealed by trailing moss. Exiles came in hush, rivals turned kin once danger passed. The scroll reveals pictograms of sheltered inlets, each marked by a rune for sanctuary. Odin describes daily life, fishing under Aurora's glow, forging makeshift axes from driftwood, and sending ravens to scout distant settlements. Supplies arrived by brave kin, stealthily unloaded onto rocky beaches. The clan leans in, imagining the salt sprays bite and the winds howl against stone. Mid-narrative, Odin pauses to point at a small symbol, a carved anchor entwined with ivy, signaling safe haven. He explains how the exiles swore an oath under midnight sun, promising to return if change favored them, and to defend the fjord if betrayal struck anew. Those hidden oaths lay buried with their makers. When the tale ends, Odin rolls the scroll and tucks it into his cloak. In the ensuing silence, you feel the fjord's phantom walls around you, shelter for the fallen and seedbed for future power. As the hearth's warmth returns, the lost fjords whisper beyond the hall, beckoning dreams of hidden coves and exiled kings. When chatter wanes, Brother Leofric steps from the shadows, carrying a vellum scroll bound in crimson silk. He represents the monastery across fjords, keepers of ink and lore, and tonight he reveals the Scroll of Shadows, a clandestine trade between monk and Norse. Leofric's voice is measured and soft. He tells how scholarly brothers left candlelit scriptoria to meet Viking emissaries under moonlight. In exchange for manuscripts of Latin hymns, Northmen shared runic knowledge and sagas hidden from church eyes. The Scroll of Shadows, Leofric explains, contains marginalia, where monks added rune glosses beside biblical passages, secrets meant only for those who spoke both tongues. He unrolls the scroll, revealing black-ink Latin script, overlaid with slender runes in weathered charcoal. The clan watches silently as Leofric traces each symbol, a fusion of faith and fate. One marginal note reads, "Fortune favors the bold," scrawled beside a psalm of refuge. Another hints at hidden coastal passages disguised in allegory. Mid-explanation, Leofric pauses, hands trembling slightly, and reminds listeners of the danger. Both church and crown condemned such knowledge-sharing as heresy. Yet these monks and Vikings found unity in curiosity, forging bonds that transcended dogma and blood. You sense the fragile trust carried on ink and parchment, the power of written word to bridge worlds. When the scroll is carefully rolled and returned to its crimson cloth, Leofric bows. The longhouse remains hushed, reverent. In that moment, you feel the weight of shared secrets and the shadowed paths inked between monk and Northman. Stories still waiting to be read beyond the feast's flicker. As the hearth dims to glowing embers, Halfdan the fire warden steps forward, lantern in hand. He oversees the all-night vigil that guards against flame's betrayal, a sacred duty to ensure the longhouse remains both hearth and haven. Halfdan's voice carries the crackle of dying wood. He recounts how during a harsh winter siege, a stray ember ignited thatch, threatening the entire hall. Since then, the wardens take turns watching the hearth, chanting protective verses to bind flame's spirit. Tonight, Halfdan will guide you through the vigil's quiet rituals. He lights his lantern, its gentle glow revealing careful preparations. Water skins at the door, sand in wooden buckets, and iron pokers hung on a nearby peg. He steps into the hall's center and recites a low verse invoking Logi, fire's ancient guardian, to stay its hunger. Each line echoes off timber walls. Clan members watch in respectful silence, knowing the warden's vigil pulses at the longhouse's heart. Mid-vigil, Halfdan moves slowly around the hearth, poking coals to maintain steady heat, listening for creaks and whispers that signal weakness. He sprinkles sand on smoldering ash, smoothing its surface and offering a final prayer for protection. In this stillness, you feel the room breathe, each exhale measured to keep flame contained. When his watch ends, Halfdan passes the lantern to the next warden and returns to shadows, leaving the hall both warm and secure. In that calm, you sense the longhouse's unseen heartbeat. The fire warden's vigil, silent stewardship that cradles every tale and dream spun here. When embers settle into calm, Solveig the cook emerges from the smokehouse, bearing a tray of enigmatic dishes. Tonight's menu, Feast of Shadows, showcases recipes meant to intrigue both palate and mind under cloak of darkness. Solveig's voice is warm as she describes each dish. Blackened barley cakes dyed with squid ink, roasted mushrooms marinated in bilberry juice, and venison stew spiced with crushed star anise. Their hues range from midnight indigo to deep burgundy, each bite a delicious surprise. She explains that the color's mystery primes the mind for stories yet to come. She distributes small bowls of ink-dark porridge sprinkled with pine nuts. As clan members taste, Solveig recounts the lore. How blind poets use similar dishes to heighten their other senses during winter gatherings. A silver spoon clinks, and you taste earthy grain, followed by a whisper of berries' tang, an edible paradox that teases memory and imagination alike. Mid-feast, Solveig unveils the centerpiece, a sealed horn carved from elk antler containing a bubbling broth of evening primrose and roasted root vegetables. She passes it around. Each listener inhales a sweet, spicy aroma, ripe with alchemy of earth and light. The broth's warmth spreads, and she explains that this mysterious menu honors both darkness and discovery, encouraging stories to emerge from the mind's shadows. When the last bowl is emptied, Solveig bows, and the hall remains stirred, tastes lingering like half-remembered dreams. In that hush, you sense the Feast of Shadows' promise, that mystery can feed both hunger and story, guiding you deeper into the Longhouse's nocturnal heart. A hush sweeps the hall when Harap the wandering skald draws a curved horn and lifts it to his lips, letting a soft echo reverberate. He'll recount Sigurd the Dragonslayer's unfinished tale, a saga whose final chapter lies buried in swirling mists. Harap's voice unfolds like dew on morning grass as he describes Sigurd's quest, forging the enchanted sword that sundered Fafnir's scales, tasting the dragon's blood to understand birdsong's warning, and journeying to realms where shadow and flame entwined. Yet before Sigurd could return home, his words and memories faded into legend's haze. Harap traces Sigurd's path on an imaginary map, to Fjordhel's chasm where Dragon's lair glowed emerald, to the misty isle where Valkyries wept, and to a sunlit grove where a whispered prophecy foretold betrayal. Each step thrums with both triumph and uncertainty. You feel the damp cave air and hear the dragon's distant roar in Harap's low tones. Mid-narrative, Harap pauses and lowers his gaze, admitting that Sigurd's final choice, whether to claim a throne or vanish into myth, remains untold. He invites listeners to imagine the ending, to weave their own threads into the saga's tapestry. Clan members lean in, breath held, as if poised to speak the final lies themselves. When the horn's echo fades, Harap raises his hand in benediction. In that charged silence, you sense Sigurd's unfinished destiny calling from beyond the Longhouse walls, an invitation to dream, to create, to carry the whisper of heroes into your own stories. Under flickering torchlight, Gudrun, the apothecary, unfolds a linen cloth embroidered with botanical sketches. She leads the clan to a trapped corner of the Longhouse, where potted night-blooming herbs thrive in woven baskets. Tonight, she shares secrets of nocturnal plants used in healing and dreamwork. Gudrun's voice is like petals brushing air. She describes moonflower blossoms that open only when torchlight glints on silver petals, potent in soothing restlessness. A night jasmine, whose fragrance lulls fevered minds. Each plant is nurtured under careful watch, watered with dew collected at twilight. Clan members lean close, inhaling scents that drift of sweet nectar and damp earth. She reaches for a moonflower and crushes a petal between fingers, releasing a soft glow before her eyes. Gudrun explains how its oils, distilled into dream salve, were applied to temples to ward off nightmares. A small jar of pale green ointment circulates. Each recipient tastes a faint, minty tang and feels a ripple of calm. Mid-demonstration, Gudrun, an incantation to encourage further blooms. Silver Nox, Lunar Lux, calling on forest night and moonlight. Slowly, a single bud trembles open, petals unfurling with a gentle sigh. In that moment, you sense the garden's living magic. How darkness yields its blossoms only to those who honor its hours. When her lesson ends, Gudrun gathers herbs in a wicker basket and retreats. In the quiet that follows, you carry night-blooming secrets in memory, a healing garden tucked behind timber walls, guiding restful dreams until dawn. When the Longhouse breeze chills, Gunnar the seal hunter enters with a bundle of seal skins and a carved ivory bowl. He speaks of Wintertide's gift, ritual feasts honoring the seal's sacrifice and the sea's generosity. Gunnar's voice is strong, carrying Brine's whisper. He recounts the hunt beneath crackling ice, when hunters crept on bell-cuffed sleds to avoid startling seals hauled out on floes. Each strike was respectful, each life honored through song and feast. Seal fat melted into bowls of hearty stew, and skins lined benches to ward off frozen drafts. He unwraps a skin, its fur still soft and mottled grey, and drapes it over a bench. Clan members run fingers through its thick pile, imagining its warmth against Arctic winds. Gunnar pours rich broth from the ivory bowl, seal fat, root vegetables, and a hint of seaweed. The aroma is heady, fishy sweetness tempered by earth. Each sip carries the tide's hush and the seal's gift of sustenance. Mid-feast, Gunnar leads a chant to honour the seal's spirit. Nerthus, guide us with your swift grace. We honour your fall for our hearth's hearth. The hall joins in soft harmony, voices rising and falling like waves. You feel the bond between sea and clan strengthen, each note weaving gratitude into memory. When the bowl is empty, Gunnar folds the skin with care and offers a final blessing, that wintertide's gift ensures strength through cold nights and mercy for creatures of shore and foam. In that solemn moment, you sense the feast's depth, how life and death intertwine in salt and story. As embers glow, Ragnar the farmer stands before a low table strewn with grains. She reveals hidden barley, the hardy crop variants cultivated in northern fields, each kernel carrying secret resilience against winter's bite. Ragnar's voice holds the steady rhythm of plough on earth. Thoughtful, she explains how ancient farmers selected barley heads that ripened earliest under fleeting summer sun, then saved and replanted only those seeds. Over generations, they bred strains that flourished in rocky soil and scant daylight. Each kernel is testament to human ingenuity and nature's adaptability. She pours a handful of pale gold barley into cupped hands, letting the kernels sift through spread fingers. Clan members watch, feeling the grain's weight, tiny potential woven from sun and soil. Calmly, Ragnar describes the annual planting festival, where families gathered to sow barley under ritual chants, calling upon Freyja for fertile fields. Mid-narrative, she sprinkles barley into a boiling kettle of soured whey, demonstrating how ancient cooks fashioned a simple porridge that sustained labourers through planting season. The kitchen wafts a tangy aroma, and you imagine steaming bowls served at dawn. Ragnar emphasizes how barley's versatility extended beyond grains. Roasted kernels ground into mead, stalks woven into thatch, and straw braided into protective amulets for barn doors. When her lesson ends, Ragnar stands and bows her head in gratitude to Earth's gifts. In that hush, you sense the hidden strength in each barley grain. Seeds of survival sown under midnight sun, carried into every waking breath of Longhouse life. A ripple of excitement spreads as young Rurik the Bold steps forward, cloak billowing in unseen wind. He'll recount the midnight mead run, a daring, youthful rite of passage that tested stealth and nerve beneath starless skies. Rurik's voice dances with adrenaline. He recalls racing across frost-slick stones to the brewer's shed. Guided only by torch glow and keen instincts, with frost-tipped cloak and bare feet, he and fellow initiates dodge slumbering guards to unseal a cask of mead, each heartbeat pounded like distant battle drums. He mimics their nimble steps, vaulting small fences, snatching the keys from under the brewer's bench, cracking the cask's lid with a stolen mallet. The first sip was victory itself, sweet mead warmed by secrecy and daring. Clan members lean in, tasting memory's warmth on their tongues. Mid-run, Rurik pauses at the cliff's edge, overlooking the fjord, mead horn raised high in silent salute. He speaks of the hush that followed, as they listened to waves whispering against ice and felt the northern wind's chill thrill their veins. Their laughter then echoed across black water, proof of life's spark amid darkness. As he finishes, Rurik bows with a grin, cloak swirling like captured night. In that moment, you feel the rush of youthful courage, the understanding that even within Longhouse walls, freedom beckons under the cover of dark. And as the feast's embers fade, The midnight mead run's echo carries you toward dreams of daring quests and midnight skies. A hush descends as Adis the storm sage steps into the hearth's glow, a staff topped with a carved lightning bolt in hand. Her voice crackles like distant thunder as she recounts how weather shaped destinies in Viking lore. Storms were not mere tempests, but messages from the gods, each rumble and flash a cipher to be read by those who dared listen. Adis begins with a night when a blood-red aurora stretched across the sky, foretelling both renewal and wrath. She describes how fishermen, guided by the wavering lights, found hidden shoals teeming with fish. Then days later, how the skies opened in a deluge that reshaped the river's course. Clan members lean forward as she traces patterns in the air, mapping cloud formations and wind shifts as one would read runes. She speaks of wind spirits, huldrefolk of storm, whose howls carried warnings of rival fleets bearing dragon-headed prows. A sudden gust through the open door punctuates her tale, and you feel the hall shiver in response. Adis recounts how Jarl Sigvart survived a siege by interpreting swirling snow flurries that masked enemy movements, turning imminent defeat into daring escape under winter's veil. Mid-narrative, she raises her staff and mimics drawing a lightning bolt across the rafters, each gesture unlocking deeper meaning in thunderclaps heard beyond wooden walls. You sense the charged air in your lungs, as if the storm's energy pulses in sync with her words. When the final clap of her tale fades, Adis lowers her staff and bows. In that charged stillness, you feel the sovereign power of weather's whispers, how wind and sky conspired to shape Viking fate. And as the feast's warmth returns, the storm sage's warnings echo in your mind, guiding dreams beneath heaven's vast, unpredictable dome. Silence deepens as Ingebjorg the Smoke Warden steps before the hearth, a rune-etched horn in hand. Tonight she will reveal the secret art of hearth runes, messages carried on curling tendrils of smoke to unseen watchers both near and far. Ingebjorg's voice trails like wisps of incense as she explains how clans use smoke signals to convey counsel. A single plume straight upward meant peace, while twisting spirals warned of approaching danger. She loads the horn with resin mixed with crushed mandrake and presses it to her lips. A low, haunting note drifts through the hall, and smoke rises in delicate shapes that soon resemble ancient runes. Algis for protection, Kenaz for revelation. Clan members follow each curling plume, deciphering silent verses mapped against dark rafters. Ingebjorg recounts a night when hidden allies signaled with smoke from distant hilltops, guiding a raiding party safely past ambush. Conversely, distorted signals once lured invaders into snowdrifts where Norse wolves waited. Mid-demonstration, she adds drops of frankincense to deepen the smoke's hue, then exhales another rune-laden call. The white plumes now glow golden in ember light, each twist a syllable in a language older than parchment. You feel the message's urgency in your chest, as if the smoke itself pulses with intent. When Ingebjorg finishes, she lowers the horn and the last spirals fade into rafters. In that hush, you understand the hearthrune's subtle power, how silent missives forged bonds and confounded foes alike. As the feast returns to voices and cups, the memory of smoke runic counsel lingers, guiding your dreams with whispered shapes in drifting air. When the mead's melodies entwine, Sion, the quiet strategist, stands. Her lips move only in subtle smiles as she unveils feast-fire feuds, tales of clandestine rivalries that ignited beneath the hall's convivial warmth. Sion's voice, though soft, hums with calculated edge as she recounts the blood-borne feud between two families who sat side by side tonight. Over platters of roast and quaffs of honeyed mead, they exchanged curt nods that masked ancient grievances. Each lifted cup, each polite exchange, was a move in an unspoken game of cunning, threats cloaked in courtesy. She details a night when a spilled drop of mead upon a rival's cloak was the spark for a duel at dawn. Another time, a strategic seating arrangement ensured a hostile jarl sat farthest from the hearth's warmth, his guests shivering in implicit scorn. Clan members lean forward, aware that their own alliances may hinge on equally subtle gestures. Mid-narrative, Sayun taps the wooden bench, once placed where a poisoned goblet narrowly missed its target. You feel the tension, how a simple chair shift could mean life or death. She recounts how these covert feuds, hidden beneath laughter and song, shaped clan leadership and succession as forcefully as any open battle. As her tale concludes, Sayun inclines her head ever so slightly toward the hall's southern corner, the silent witness to many whispered plots. In that charged silence, you sense the feast fire feuds smouldering just out of sight. A reminder that around every shared meal lies a tinderbox of old ambitions. A hush like snowfall settles as Freyric the mute skald strides into dim light, empty scroll bound at his side. Though his voice is lost to tragedy, his silent presence speaks volumes. Tonight, he offers the silent skald's tale, lessons in stories conveyed through action rather than word. Freyric's gaze wanders the hall, then rests on a fresh canvas of birch bark at the hearth's edge. Reaching into a pouch, he draws charcoal and begins swift, sweeping sketches. A roaring dragon, clasp hands, a lone raven alighting. Each image is a stanza, his charcoal verses, telling sagas that might otherwise slip away in silence. He sketches a warrior's funeral ship, sails billowing toward eternal dawn, a volva offering runes in silent prayer, children dancing around the hearth's embers. Clan members watch the images rise, piecing together meaning without spoken guide. You feel the hush of unspoken words, forming a bridge between hearts and memory. Mid-creation, Freyric pauses and stamps his staff, an unvoiced beat in place of a drum. The sketched dragon unfurls its wings, the raven caws in charcoal flight. With each stroke, you sense his silent oath, that even without voice, story finds a way. When the final sketch completes, Freyric lays down charcoal and steps back. The birch bark tapestry stands alive with narrative energy. In that gentle hush, you grasp the silent skald's gift, that story transcends speech, living in ink, gesture, and shared gaze. Before stories and sagas, the Longhouse itself was born of masterful craft. Gunnar the master builder stands beneath its vaulted rafters, explaining the mechanics that keep this great hall standing through winter snows and summer storms. Tonight, he shares the hidden ingenuity woven into every beam and joint. Gunnar's voice resonates like hammer on anvil as he describes selecting oak timbers felled in autumn when the wood's sap runs slow and its strength peaks. He speaks of mortise and tenon joints hewn by hand, bound with yew-pegs so precisely cut that even a thin leather strap cannot slip between them. Each technique preserved in the builder's guild and passed silently from father to son. He gestures upward, pointing to carved dragon-head finials perched at each gable. These were not mere decoration. They served to divert wind and draw smoke from the hearth skyward, creating a stable draft that warmed every corner. Below hidden braces, called heart beams, distribute the roof's weight evenly, protecting walls from bowing under heavy snowfall. As he recounts each detail, you sense the hall's living strength. The timbers creak not from age, but from the very design meant to flex and settle without breaking. Gunnar recalls a winter when snowfall buried the roof's eaves, and though the village outside crumbled under weight, this hall sheltered every family in its warm embrace. When he concludes, Gunnar places his calloused palm against a beam overhead. You feel its smoothness, the almost imperceptible give, engineered over decades of practice. In the silence that follows, you appreciate the hidden labor behind every tale told here, the magic of structure that cradles memory and mead alike.